Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. It's wonderful to have such a full room today in the council chambers. I want to say, for those of you that are here for the first time, welcome to City Hall. And for those of you that are coming back, it's great to have you, especially for, excuse me, such a special day. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We start with an invocation, which we observe by having a moment of silence. We'll follow that by the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we'll do some roll call. So there's just some normal stuff, and then the good stuff will happen. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask that we all rise. And I'll ask before we start the Pledge of Allegiance, are there any young people that know the Pledge of Allegiance that would like to lead this? I should have asked before, Brinley. Would you like to help lead? Okay. All right. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry.
Personnel. Breathe it. Go. Join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Oh. Order.
All right, you may be seated. All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Corliss.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Nash. Stead.
Here.
Willits.
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
All right, now we will move into special business. We first have the appointment of a planning and zoning commissioner. Mike Stefancic wasn't able to join us, but I am proposing that he serve a 4-year term, and he's agreed, ending November 18th, 2029.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I ask for unanimous consent of the appointment of Mike Stefancic to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 4-year term ending November 18th, 2029.
Without objection.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, certainly no objection to Mike joining the team here. I've known Mike for a really long time. He's been involved in the community in so many ways. I'm always just so impressed when anybody decides that they're going to volunteer their time to serve on a commission, especially the Planning and Zoning Commission, because it's a lot of work. It's not always sometimes a thankless job, but it's a job that's incredibly important to the city, and it's a job that's incredibly important to council. A lot of the decisions that we make are informed by the conversations that happen there and the recommendations as well. So just want to thank you to Mike for joining the team.
And now we are going to quickly, before we pick up the next piece, and then we're about to move into the evening, and then I'll have some general remarks. But first, I'd ask that council make a motion to approve the minutes from October 28th.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I move approval of the minutes for the strategic planning sessions and regular meetings on October 28th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willis.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right. And now I am going to ask that we welcome the pipes and drums who will lead the chiefs in and their families in for the ceremony. I want to thank everybody for being here for both the nomination and approval of our new chief that will come soon, and then the change of command ceremony that we're having today. We are gathering first to honor Chief Niemeyer and to welcome after, and welcome again, but then we'll welcome now, but also then welcome after once we make this official, our new chief, Aaron Hummel. And I gotta say, the role of fire chief is one of the most significant in our city. You not only are charged with leading a department and caring for and leading the group of firefighters that make up Boise Fire, the administrative team, and others, but the community looks to you as a leader in your own right. And the community this role demands a leader whose commitment runs deep, who is deeply focused on this city, her people, and the men and women of Boise Fire. Chief Niemeyer, you have embodied that commitment, that deep, deep commitment to the people of this community and to this department. And I so appreciate your service. It has been an honor to work with you these last 5 years. You have embodied the role of leader and role of fire chief in terms of your commitment to people. You're working with the team across the city beyond the fire department, and then the connections that you've made throughout the community. And of course, I said this on Friday and it was acknowledged. It's such a great event, but your leadership didn't just stay here. You moved beyond the city with your role in Western Fire Chiefs and the state. And that was acknowledged on Friday as it should have been and made so much more clear the impact you've had beyond these walls as well. So you've lived our values, especially that belief that there's nothing that we can't do better. And there is nothing that we would have asked of you that you would not have said yes to on behalf of the men and women of Boise Fire and Boise City. So I thank you for your service. And with that, I would like to open it up to council members to make some remarks.
I'll go ahead and kick things off here. First, Chief, I just want to start by apologizing for not making it to your retirement ceremony. I was in Philadelphia at the time, but really wanted to be there because I had a story that I wanted to share then that I'll share now instead. So I think one of the most important things that you can do as a leader is establish trust with the community, with the people that you serve, with the people that are within your fire department. And you really came into the department about the same time that I came into office as a city council member. And when you came in, there was sort of an unmet promise that we had in Northwest Boise. And the very first thing that you did was, one, you found the right location for this fire station. I believe one of the best looking fire stations in Boise, if not in Idaho, if not in the country. And I remember the day that we arrived on that location and decided this was going to be the one. And the first thing you said is, we are going to put a sign up today, letting everybody know that this is the home of Future Fire Station 13. And if I believe if the story is right, the sign started to get made, and the sign wasn't quite big enough for your liking. And so that sign became even bigger because you wanted to make sure that the people in that area of town knew that you were there to build trust, to restore trust, and to make sure that they had something that they needed to feel safe in their community. I think that that story, although it's your very first one, really kind of carried on throughout the rest of your service on the Boise City Fire Department, building that trust, fulfilling those commitments, making sure that the community knew that you and your team were there for them. That left a big impression on me. I think it left a big impression on a lot of folks in the city. I want to say thank you for your service. I want to say thank you for establishing that trust and really running the department in a way where that trust now has the ability to continue on in a way that it always has in the city of Boise. So thank you so much. Congratulations and best of luck on the road ahead.
Madam Mayor. Chief, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I've served on council for just a little under 2 years and have had, I think, endless questions for you on staffing and the inner workings of the fire department. And I appreciate your patience with me. Under your leadership, you've done so much within the city, from remodeling Station 6, big remodel for downtown Station 5. Which also has a museum to kind of show that legacy of the fire department within our city. And of course, with the fire station, it's 13 out there as well. Boise is a growing city. I think we have about 130 square miles to cover with our fire stations, 230 plus thousand residents. And under your leadership, I feel you've really helped embody what it means to be a servant leader, and also to build that trust within your team, within council, and also within the community. So not only we really strengthen our fire department, you made Boise safer, more resilient. And on behalf of myself and all the residents in District 3, I want to thank you very much for your years of service.
Madam Mayor. Chief Neymar, thank you. I too want to extend a deep, heartfelt gratitude for all of the work, the good work and real service that happens in District 4, Vista Bench, and Southeast Boise. We have a handful of stations full of amazing firefighters, really public servants that have personally visited my cul-de-sac a handful of times for numerous different, fortunately not fire related, but numerous emergencies. And I think one of the greatest things that I've appreciated getting to know you is the type of leadership that you've brought to this department. You can look at it in your command staff, just the incredible talent that sits at each piece of Boise Fire to lift where they stand, to make sure that this response is the best that we can have for the good health and protection of our communities. It's been a pleasure getting to work with you as well these short under 2 years. And excited to be able to follow your next adventure, but just grateful for all that you've done in service of Boise. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I jump in?
Yep.
Chief Niemeyer, I'm so sorry I can't be there tonight. I had a work obligation out of state, so taking this from my hotel room, it looks like Councilmember Willits is as well in a different hotel room, probably in a different state. But I couldn't miss this. I was fortunate to attend the retirement party and give you a hug in person. But I wanted to thank you beyond what's been mentioned, to include your support of the work that's been done along the foothills and the wildfire mitigation that's been done there along the wildlife urban interface. I think that you've continued to lead with integrity, compassion, clarity, and I think it's shaped the culture of the department and inspired those who have had the privilege to work alongside you. As you step into retirement, I wish you nothing but rest, joy, and the freedom to pursue what brings you the most happiness, which I know will be those grandbabies that I saw running around the training facility. So we'll be thinking about you here, and we'll continue to reap the benefits, I think, of the culture that you crafted while you were in the position. Thank you so much.
Chief, another big thank you. Thank you so much for all that you've done for the city. You know, it's rare in life that you get the opportunity to see good work, and you've had that opportunity. One of the things that I think often goes unnoticed in our city is all of these services that we have until you really need them. And 4th of July evening, we were driving home from the fireworks, and we thought, oh, there's a fire truck. Oh, it started to turn where we were going to turn. And we basically followed this fire truck to our neighborhood. And 2 doors down, there was a home that was ablaze, one of our neighbors' homes. And it really stuck with me there that the kind of work that you do and the others in public safety, you are there on people's darkest days. And I was so impressed with our firefighters. I was so impressed with just how much care and kindness they took in a really horrible, awful situation where someone's entire life is being engulfed in front of them. And it takes a really strong person to do that, but it also takes someone who has heart, because that's someone's life. And it really emphasized to me just how lucky we are to have the kind of professionals that we do. And you've led this department, and people feel safe in Boise because of what you've done. So thank you. I hope you get a huge vacation when this is all over. I hope you get all your honey-do lists. I hope your wife has a list of them to get done. And I just hope that, you know, as you become a civilian again, that you just know that even if folks didn't know you in Boise, they are grateful for you and what you've done for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Would you like to come on up?
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you very much. And to our incredible firefighters, just one more time, thank you. And thank you to our community for allowing me to serve these last 5 years. But really today is about Chief Hummel. And I am so excited for you and your family, for this department and for this city and what's to come. You know that the role of a fire chief was first established in Rome in 6 AD under Emperor Augustus. And at the time, the fire chief position was called Prefectus Vigilum. Years later, many years later, in our country, in America in 1678, Thomas, I just lost my place. His name was Thomas Atkins. There we go. Typical Irish name. Thomas Atkins became the first paid fire chief for the Boston Fire Department. But then years later, in 1736, Benjamin Franklin, who quite honestly has been known in our industry as one of the founders of the American Fire Service, formed the first volunteer fire company in Philadelphia, a place you were just at, Councilman. Years later, as we look to today, there's over 1 million paid and volunteer firefighters in this country today. There's just over 22,000 fire chiefs. In Idaho, there's only 230. In this county, there's only 5. And Chief Hummel now gets the incredible opportunity to be named as the 16th fire chief for the Boise Fire Department. And that started with E.B. Tage in 1903 as the first. The bugles that Chief Hummel are going to wear have significance. They're bugles today, but back then they were called speaking trumpets. And you always knew who was commanding a fire ground because they used a speaking trumpet to bark orders over the chaos and the noise. Today we don't bark orders. But the bugles we wear, the 5 bugles we wear, are significant because that is joining a very small group of individuals who have the honor and the opportunity to serve in the positions we do. So to you, Chief, to Amy, to your whole family, I wish you nothing but joy and happiness, fulfillment. I will tell you there's going to be great days. There's going to be hard days. And in the hard days, you'll lean into each other, but you'll also lean into the reason we're here, and that's the mission. It's the thing we serve that can always ground us and bring us back to make sure that the men and women that are serving that mission every day are getting everything they need. So with that, congratulations. I'm so excited for you. This is your day.
Thank you, Mark. So now I would like to put forth the appointment of Aaron Hummel as Fire Chief of the City of Boise.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the appointment of Aaron Hummel as the Chief of Fire effective November 16th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Congratulations. All right, now I am going to come on down from the dais to administer the oath of office. I, Aaron Hummel,
I, Aaron Hummel,
having been appointed
Fire Chief
Fire Chief of the Boise Fire Department,
Fire Chief of the Boise Fire Department,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that of the state of Idaho.
and that of the state of Idaho.
I will obey the rules,
I will obey the rules,
regulations,
regulations,
and orders
and orders
of the City of Boise
of the City of Boise
and its fire department.
and its fire department.
I will honorably perform the duties of Fire Chief
I will honorably perform the duties of Fire Chief
and faithfully serve the citizens
and faithfully serve the citizens of Boise
to the best of my knowledge.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I freely accept the greater responsibility.
I freely accept the greater responsibility of this position. So help me God. Thank you.
Now we are going to.
I noticed you didn't have glasses. I'm impressed. Well, Madam Mayor, City Council, thank you for trusting in me to be your next fire chief. I want to start by thanking Chief Niemeyer. He came to us at a time where he really helped us refocus and prioritize mission first, mission over me. And it has felt, it's been a great 5 years. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my amazing wife, Amy, who's been with me for 22 of these 30 years of this journey so far. She's picked up the slack while I went to college for years and years. She's helped me with the children when I was away on shift. And of course, my children, Austin, Chloe, and Jackson, being the parent of a first responder, in particular on shift work, sometimes you miss important dates. Sometimes we have to request Santa Claus, do a little bit of an alternative schedule for our neighborhood. But they were great, and I'm super proud of all of them. I also want to thank retired Battalion Chief Steve Rizzullo. Steve is, I think, here today, but if it wasn't for Steve, I wouldn't have taken the Battalion Chief's exam. The truth is, I didn't have my eye on being a chief officer
I really had my eye on ladder 5 and expected to retire as a captain on ladder 5. But at Steve's urging, again and again, year after year, I worked as the captain in the same firehouse that he was at. I finally decided to go ahead and take the battalion chief's exam. I reasoned that it would be, good opportunity for me just to study and be a better captain. But that put me on a journey to be able to do more and more and serve more at each level that I went up. So thank you, Steve Rizzullo, for pushing me. I really am so grateful to be selected to lead this incredible department. I know most of you realize this, but it is incredible to me the talent that we have in all of our divisions, the passion that we see every day serving this community. It's very humbling to be selected to lead you all, and I will do the best that I can. And finally, I just want to thank the citizens of Boise for they are the ones that make this such an amazing city that I've raised my family in. I'm so thankful to be able to serve as their fire chief. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Chief Hummel, and welcome. It is truly an honor to be here, participate in this ceremony, to see your family and know who will be standing by you in the years to come as you lead this department. I thank you for your interest in and willingness and desire to serve this city and the men and women of Boise Fire, and look forward to working together in the time to come. So congratulations.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think this was a very easy vote for all of us today. I remember when we actually first hired Chief Niemeyer, one of the things that he said is that the next hire for a chief of police will come internally from the city of Boise. And I think that that's a great testament to the team that you all have to have such great candidates for this position and have great candidates going forward. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was that trust. And our fire department are really our most trusted community members in the city. You show up to people's houses and they are happy to see you. They trust that you're going to take care of them. And you've earned that trust year after year after year. That's the legacy that you have in this position, is to build that trust, to continue to build it. One of the things that I love about the fire department is that it's a team within a team within a team. We've got all of our different stations who care about each other like family members. We've got the entire department, and then we've got the entire city, multiple different departments working together. And that aspect of a team is something that I know is so important to every single person on the Boise Fire Department. It carries over to the rest of the folks at the city as well. So that although you are a leader for the fire department, you really are a leader for the entire city. The entire city of Boise as an organization, the entire city of Boise as a community. Easy decision for me to make today. It's so amazing to see multiple generations of your family here today. I don't know what you and your wife are eating to be looking so young to have these grandkids here today. I need to get on that diet. But it's great to see this legacy that you've created within your own family, within the city of Boise, and within this department. I know you're going to do well in this position, and I look forward to serving with you.
Madam Mayor, I'll try to be brief. I got the pleasure of meeting Chief Hummel about, oh gosh, I guess it was a year ago, one of the first fire stations I toured in Southwest Boise. And again, had a lot of endless questions on how things work. What are the different apparatus? When do we use this? How many people can go on this ladder truck or drive the fire brush truck? And he's very patient and gracious to explain all the different processes, all the different apparatus that we have, and how staffing works. I just appreciate you. I appreciate you stepping up. We had really great candidates for the role. I think it was a very tough decision, and but we are absolutely honored, and it was an easy decision for council tonight to approve you stepping into this role. So congratulations.
Madam Mayor, Chief Hummel, congratulations. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over this past couple of years, particularly our time that we got to spend together at One Stone for Bravery Angels, and just the way that you engaged with this next generation of Boiseans, and they shared some of the things that were stressors and worries for them. Their the questions that they had in their future, and I saw in you someone with hands ready to pull them up and help respond. And I know that service will continue through Boise Fire. Grateful for all of our command staff that will continue to support you in this new position, and all of the men and women throughout Boise Fire. And I know it's an exciting time. This opportunity that you will lead is an exciting time where we have tools at our disposal to figure out the best way to put resources where they can make the most impact, and help as our city grows in different ways than it has probably grown in the prior generations. And so I'm excited for your thumbprint. I know that you will use all of the tools, all of your support within Boise Fire to maximize those opportunities, and our city, our residents, our neighbors, our family, our friends will be very grateful for that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, hi,
Yep,
Chief.
go ahead.
Chief Hummel, congratulations. Your commitment to public service and to the people of Boise is evident. This promotion reflects the trust and confidence that this community has in your leadership. I think that stepping into this role requires vision, steadiness, and a deep respect for the traditions and the mission of this department and of this city. And we know that you will rise to that occasion and more. As you take on this next chapter, we look forward to the direction that you will provide, the professionalism that I know you will continue to foster, and the ways that you will guide the department in serving our residents with excellence. The work ahead is important, and we know we are grateful to have someone prepared to meet both the challenges and the opportunities with integrity and purpose. On behalf of the city, I want to thank you for your dedication and congratulate you on this very well-earned promotion. And I know it was hard to get. There's lots of steps along the way, and I think you proved yourself in each one of them. We look forward to working alongside you as you lead the department in this next chapter. Welcome and congratulations again.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Chief, just another hearty congratulations. I'm so thrilled that you're going to lead our department. I'm so thrilled that there's an internal candidate that is going to grow with our city. And I just appreciate your service. It comes at a cost. And I wanted to thank your family ahead of time, because I know that there'll be family dinners that you won't be able to make. And you've already experienced that. And I know all of the folks who serve our city in a public safety role in that room know what that's like, where you have to miss a commitment because of the commitment you have to the city, and families pay a price for it. And it's not often seen by those who aren't experiencing it. So I just want to make a special call out to your family, tell you thank you in advance. Know that there'll be times where he won't be available, but we're so thrilled that he's helping our city become what it is today. And I hope you get lots of rain checks for those dinners that you miss, because we do certainly appreciate all that you do, and it's an important thing for us as a community to have somebody we can rely on. So thank you.
All righty. So that concludes the official and this part of the evening. I'm going to invite everybody to stay with us after the chief and his family step out, but stay with us for a reception. And then our meeting will resume again at 6 for those of you that are here for that. Thanks, everybody. All righty, welcome back. there aren't enough people in this room anymore for it to be warm at the temperature that it was warm at before. I don't know if anything can be done, but it's not just me that's cold tonight. All of us up here are cold. Just looking out into the ether. If the heat could be turned up a little bit, I'd sure appreciate it. I think it worked great when we had over 100 people in here. So we've already done roll call and everything because we were all here together before. So we're just going to pick this up. We've got interim budget changes, and for this, there's no presentation. If there are any questions, then we can address them. Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the interim budget change.
Second,
We have a motion, a second, clerk?
Madam Mayor, I think there
Oh.
may be a couple of comments.
Sure.
Now I got to go back. Madam Mayor, I'm happy to see that the council is supporting, is providing a donation at this difficult time. And just happy to see us supporting the community in which we are at, and understanding that with the reduction in SNAP benefits this month, on average, people are getting $175 a month. Now that's down to about 115 at that lower percentage amount, and people are hurting. And we see our community stepping up too to help support our people, providing little food pantries, making better donations out to local charities. And while I know this is not sustaining, but it does help our community where they are at today. Yeah, thank
Madam
you.
Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to jump in and thank the council for these funds that are going to be allocated to the Boise Farmers Market. That's what this interim budget change is about. When the SNAP benefits the Boise Farmers Market always has a program all year round, where if residents bring their SNAP dollars to the farmers market, they match that up to $20 extra to spend at the market. And when the SNAP benefits were paused this month, the Boise Farmers Market pivoted really quickly and opened their doors and came up with resources to give anybody with an EBT card $40 to spend at the market, no questions asked. I think the first weekend they did that, they ended up they had fundraised maybe $5,000 for that and ended up spending about $23,000 on that in the first weekend. And I was so humbled by their effort and how quickly they adapted to that need, and that they didn't stop even though the funds they had originally allocated towards that had run out. I think that this is a good use of council funds to help cover some of that deficit that they experienced in that first weekend. It not only helped the residents that are shopping with that $40 that was provided, but it also, these are dollars that are being spent with local farmers. So it has that economic boost as well. So I think that these are dollars well spent to help sustain our community during sort of an emergency time of need. So I appreciate the council's effort on this.
All right. Thanks for your comments. Sorry to rush you. I'd forgotten the topic of the interim budget change, and do really appreciate that council is doing this. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks, everybody. And now we're going to welcome Craig Rayborn here tonight for a presentation on Compass. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. And I think we've got a presentation that
And once it pops up, there's a clicker there somewhere that you can move it along.
hopefully. So I'll stand by, but I'll go ahead and start with some introductory materials. The first couple of slides kind of just cover a little bit of background. So every year we undertake a call for applications for small planning efforts around the region. We're in the middle of that right now, and part of what drives that is we undertake meetings with all the staff, or not all the staff, but staff at all of our member agencies all over the region to try to get a handle on what the issues are. This year, because I'm new in this position, and I'll cover that in a second, but we wanted to also have a sort of a road show where I'm coming out and getting a chance to meet all of the local elected officials and let you all know that I'm available. If I mean the city has really good representation and very active representation with Compass. But if any members of the council ever want to talk about something that Compass is doing, please feel free to reach out directly to me or any of the team members as well, and we'll either get an answer or a response or whatever it takes to try to address whatever the question or need was. So as part of this presentation, I just wanted to start by explaining a little bit about where I come from. So I've been the executive director at Compass now for, I guess, 9 months and 1 day. We figured out a few minutes ago, and so I'm still relatively new to the area and the region and learning my way around. But I did want to give a sense of my background. So I've been doing transportation related planning and policy type work for about 25 years now. I have primarily worked at metropolitan planning organizations similar to Compass in the West and in the South, and also primarily fast-growing areas as well. And so I've got a good solid 10 to 12 years of direct experience in places that are similar in a lot of the types of issues and needs that Compass faces and that this region faces, and frankly, I think that Boise probably faces as well. So just a brief reminder of who Compass is. So we're the association of cities, counties, highway districts, and all the other agencies around the region, or as many of those agencies as possible, that plan for the future. We try to look not just at what's currently happening, but what's going to be happening in the region 20 or more years out. But the real thing to take away from this is that Compass is its members. So we only exist because of the members. As what's called a metropolitan planning organization, we are constituted by the local governments around the region, and that's really what drives us. So our mission at Compass is conducting regional planning, facilitating coordination and cooperation, serving as the source of information and expertise on all types of issues affecting our region, and then assisting member agencies in accessing the funding so that is needed to accomplish the local goals as well as the region's region's overall goals. So to do that, we undertake transportation planning, obviously. We distribute federal transportation dollars to projects and needs around the region. We provide that technical expertise and then that cooperative and collaborative process that is really core to what we do as a planning agency. So I'm going to talk for a few slides now about sort of the dynamic nature of our region. So what this slide is showing are residential permits, maybe certificates of occupancy actually over the past 5 years. And you can see areas, it really pops up, areas that are undergoing really rapid growth around the region. And I'll demonstrate in the next slide why that really matters here. Our region's population, we are on track to, at roughly 850,000 right now, we're on track to be up to around 1.3 million in the next 25 to 30 years. We're adding 15 households a day region-wide and about 16 new jobs every day region-wide. Now, what this slide shows is the population density in the brown tones, and obviously the darker color is more dense, higher population density levels, and then the blue are the higher density jobs. And so we're not showing like the low density retail areas, but this is really like the office jobs, the ones that generate more commutes. So this is 2025, and this is what 2055 looks like. And you can see, I can flip back and forth, good, yeah. So you can see significant growth. And what that actually indicates is the commutes. I mean, that difference in the blue areas and the brown areas basically indicates that's why people are traveling on the highways and the roads that we have around the region. And the more that disparity exists, the more that travel need happens and needs to be addressed. One thing I'll note about this is although you can kind of see Boise's area, geographic area, doesn't really change that much, particularly compared to some of the towns out to the west. Your population over that time period is still growing by our estimates by at least 25%. And so there's still significant growth happening in Boise as well. So it's not stagnant at all. Another nice thing about this is because of Boise's compact development pattern, your jobs housing balance is the highest in the region. And as a result of that, basically for every 2 people, there's 1 job in Boise. And then factor in another 110, 115,000 people every day that come into Boise for their jobs. That actually works out really well. It means that in the off hours, the non-peak travel hours, you're probably not dealing with quite as much congestion on the roads as some of the other parts of the region are. Another element that's interesting about the region is how the sort of the centroid, the center of where the jobs and the people, how that's moving over time. And so the red dots in the right side there are showing the jobs, and both the green and the purple dots are showing either population or household, but they kind of mirror each other pretty closely. And you can just kind of see over time there's this gradual drift to the west as more of that development is happening to fill in those areas that I just showed. But that gap, that difference between the green and the red is really what explains traffic and congestion. And because you take that and you apply that to 850,000 people, and that's a whole bunch, that 2 to 3 miles of distance is a whole bunch of vehicle miles traveled, vehicles on the road that gets averaged across, admittedly, it's not just right in this little area of Meridian, but it's across the entire region that travel is happening. The growth that's also happening, and this chart doesn't show it, but the previous maps did, that explains the increase in congestion and the way that the volumes are happening. And then the movement of that, to the west, and it's slow. That's over 30 years that change in pattern is happening. That sort of explains the patterns of congestion and the ways that the volume of traffic is shifting around the region. So to address these things, what Compass provides is a seat at the table where those decisions around transportation needs and funding priorities are made. We're the region's voice outside of the region. So we're actively engaged with both board and staff, with the National Association of Regional Councils, and then we have very deep staff engagement with what's called the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. And so we hear a lot about the best practices and the needs and issues that are coming up at other regions as well. And so hopefully we'll be able to use that and leverage that into ways that we can better help our region. We also, like I noted earlier, provide that financial assistance for necessary transportation projects to try to address the priorities of the region. We do technical assistance for our member agencies and, the general public. We put quite a bit of that up online. We also do demographics and analysis. So a lot of the images I've been showing are sort of a reflection of that demographics and analysis work that we do. And we pull all of that together then to do our long range planning and frankly, the problem solving as we try to sort of play the role of stewarding the overall transportation system for the region. So that regional planning or that long range planning really consists of a bunch of different types of regional plans. And these are the ones that tend to, not always, but they tend to cross the jurisdictional boundaries. So we're not trying to replace what one city might do with their planning activities, although some of the smaller jurisdictions really can benefit from the assistance that we can provide them. But the larger cities, really, it's those instances where something is an issue that is really region-wide or affects 2 different jurisdictions, and we can kind of help play that role. So we have, just in the past year, we adopted a new regional safety action plan. We've been undertaking and leading the high-capacity transit plan for the region. We'll hopefully have that adopted in February. We do a number of what we call connectivity studies. So we look at sort of the mobility needs around the region. And we've got a few of those that are underway right now. We just initiated a resilience plan. Actually, I guess just initiated. It's been a couple months now, but we have a resilience plan underway now. It's really looking at the impacts on the transportation system of natural disasters and incidents like that that can create delays or damage to the system that need to be addressed, and try to find ways to minimize those when they do happen. And all those kind of roll up into the regional long-range transportation plan that we call Communities in Motion. The current version is Communities in Motion 2050, but we're always updating that and revising it. And so we're already working on Communities in Motion 2055 that'll be adopted in about 2 years. So the Communities in Motion plan identifies 4 primary regional goals. So it's improving safety, it's supporting economic vitality of the region, enhancing the quality of life, and then maintaining the convenience of the transportation system and trying to find ways to improve it whenever possible. So to accomplish that, there's a bunch of different things that we do. So one of the services we provide throughout the region is we look at larger developments that are happening, and we try to crosswalk those against those regional goals that we just identified. So this is what we call a development review checklist, where the developments that come into local agencies, right now we have a threshold for the larger jurisdictions, a size threshold for them. But we look at those and compare the project as it's proposed to what the plan has included in the plan. And so you can kind of just get a sense that we can look and sort of score the projects for how well they're addressing the region's vision as a whole. It's not regulatory or anything like that. It's really meant to be informational, but to help the local agencies understand what their development patterns are starting to look like. The plan also, and this is really what most people think of when they think of a regional transportation plan like Communities in Motion, is it identifies all of the funded transportation improvements that will be happening in the region over the next 20 to 30 years. And so it includes obviously maintenance, which is a really high priority for our region, safety projects, bridge rehab, intelligent transportation system, trying to make the road network work more efficiently, public transportation, ped bike projects. Sorry, it says bicycle pedestrian. I always say ped bike. It's how it's drilled into me. So it's a tongue twister for me. But travel demand management, which is ideas like trying to combine trips and activities like that. And then the plan also identifies a number of additional future planning needs that we have, so that we can start laying the groundwork for what's further down the road. And then finally, of course, roadway expansion is always one of the considerations, one of the types of projects that we always that we look at as well. So briefly, just kind of covering the benefits. So the current version of the plan right now identifies just over $11 billion of investments over between when that plan was adopted and 2050. And this map is showing the current conditions on the roads that we have as of 2025. And so that's basically, it's pretty obvious, I think, but the wider, darker the line is, the worse the moment of congestion is, the peak moment of congestion for that piece of infrastructure. Sometimes it's morning, sometimes it's afternoon, but that's really showing when that congestion, or what that level of congestion is. So the next map, this one, shows without the investments that the plan identifies. So that's as population grows, travel in our transportation system gets quite a bit more difficult. And even with that $11 billion of investment, it's still, I'm going to flip back too, just to get the comparison. Light green is pretty much what you see on, frankly, most of the conditions. The hotspots kind of pop out, but with the investments, you can kind of see just as an overall pattern, the region as a whole continues to suffer. And that means that there are still a lot of potential fixes and needs that are out there. And so, and this is another one, just demonstrating the time impact, sort of turning that map into a table. And even with those investments, our travel is going to go from Caldwell to downtown Boise was 30 minutes. even with those investments will be 44 minutes. So still about a 50% increase. And then the number of days, that kind of travel increase leads to more days with need and impacts on the road system. And so that sort of those event days have increased about 30% just in a year. Okay, so back to the unfunded needs. There are all types of maintenance, road projects, pathways that can, pathways can be really valuable, especially in urban settings, because they can replace a car trip. And so that's a good benefit to have. Expanded transit and of course high capacity transit that we've been looking at too. So all in, the plan identified a total of $16.5 billion of needed investments. And like I said, we're able to fund those right now at about 11.1 billion. And so the shortfall is about 5.5 billion. And that works out to 193 million a year of shortfall. And that's what we're falling behind every year in transportation and all those different types of transportation investments. So with that, what Compass is doing is we've adopted a pretty active legislative strategy for this year. Our board a few weeks ago adopted the 2026 state legislative priorities, and those focus on increasing revenue, addressing the growth impacts, the sort of the term they like to use, and I think it's pretty common around the region, is trying to find ways to let growth pay for growth. And then a new one for this year was linking housing to transportation. So the idea of trying to encourage new housing to go in locations where there's existing transportation infrastructure to sort of tap into that underutilized and hopefully make both the housing less expensive and the transportation investments, try to minimize the need for new transportation investments. We're going to be focusing on incremental changes this year. And then another thing that I do want to note is my background has a lot of federal policy experience as well. And we will engage quite a bit as the federal transportation policy making process is undertaken over the next, hopefully, year. Realistically, it's probably going to take longer than that for them to come up with the new law. But we're gonna have our eyes on that quite a bit throughout that process. So with all these activities, we like to say that Compass really does help make things happen. So, our long-range plan is where transportation projects, investments around the region start. They start in our plan. We work with the project sponsors and the data that we collect to identify those needs and identify the best projects that can address those needs. Then we work to fund the project. And so sometimes that's money that Compass directs. Sometimes it's money that is a competitive grant from some outside source. And sometimes it's locally generated funds as well. And so we work to try to find the funding to be able to make those projects move towards implementation. And that can be construction or some type of a program or something like that. So our partner agency builds the projects. Compass doesn't do any of the construction ourselves. We don't own any transportation infrastructure. So it's on the partners to build the actual new projects or conduct the maintenance activities or anything like that. But as a result of this cycle, the region and the residents then get the benefits when the projects do eventually come online. So this process starts with a lot of these projects start with the planning activities that Compass undertakes first. So we have what we call a resource development program. That's what I'm out here sort of encouraging. It's kind of late because the deadline you'll see in a second is actually tomorrow, but we are actively out and trying to encourage local agencies to identify and apply for planning needs that they have or project needs that they have around the region. We have a number of funding sources that can support this. So after this application process that we're undertaking right now, we have two funding sources. One of them can really focus on implementing small projects. We do a lot of little sidewalk projects with that, intersection projects, little things like that. And then we have the ones that are sort of the first step in the planning process. So small planning activities that didn't pop up on our radar until we heard about it from the communities like that. We also identify, that also lets us identify those needs that the jurisdictions that our member agencies are identifying that we don't currently have the resources to be able to address. And we put those into what we call the resource development plan. And then we try to turn that we use that then to try to leverage additional funds. And so throughout the course of the year, there could be any number of opportunities to try to pull something from the resource development plan into some form of funding or implementation. And to help with that, there's a bunch of these services that we provide. Directly related to this really is the grant writing activities that we support. So we do quite a bit of work with our members to try to bring in more resources for them to address their needs. And like I said, the deadline for the current phase, the current round of this application process is actually tomorrow. So there's not a lot of room for that, but hopefully the city's well along. We've been communicating this pretty strenuously and pretty regularly and vigorously with staff at all of the local agencies. We do have another cycle too that we'll do in the spring also. So some of the examples of projects that have sort of gone through, started with this process and are reaching or advancing. The big one that, for the regional level is State Highway 16. That one started way back in 2006 when it first showed up in our plan. It's gone through starts and stops as we've been trying to identify funding sources for it as a region to make that happen. But it was funded into our transportation improvement program in 2018. Construction began, and hopefully it's still on track to be open to the public in 2027. And it's supposed to, offer pretty good pressure relief valve for a lot of the traffic on the west side of the valley. Another, more directly relevant here example is the Federal Way and Broadway Avenue multi-use pathway. That started as a project development project back in 2020 through our application process that I just described, and is moving in. It's now showing up for funding and is moving into construction in 2029. It's about a $4.5 million project, and we're happy to have helped with that too. So like I mentioned earlier, we've gone around and met with staff at all the local agencies, including, of course, City of Boise. And the needs that we heard from your team really focused on trying to get funding for Pathways Network that is really important to the city, continuing to assist with safety improvements. We all know, unfortunately, how important that is, both in the city and around the region as a whole. And then supporting the implementation of your new zoning code in the ways that we can. We can do travel demand modeling that can help give a better picture to the city as you're considering applications. And we're also going to be working as we're updating our plan. One of the things that we're really try to do is to merge those local and regional plans. And so we're going to be looking at the zoning ordinance and seeing how that potentially affects our future land use forecast as well. And then, of course, another one that we've been providing some support to recently is relating to the Lake Hazel extension and doing some analysis that then I think is going to channel its way back up to the council through staff. So we address these directly. We can assist directly with grant applications to address the sidewalk needs or safety hotspot needs and things like that. We can search for additional funds on priority projects that the city would be implementing. Or that could be implemented by, say, ACHD within the city. We can help with those too. And then that ongoing collaboration on safety initiatives that I'll touch on just a smidge as I'm wrapping up in the next couple slides. So all those different ways that Compass is here to help and sort of the services that we provide, but it's that planning and kind of stewardship of the future transportation system. The big emphasis on safety and saving lives. That regional safety action plan. We do an educational campaign called Good Moves. We put out promotional materials. We make them freely available. But that's something that we're really emphasizing right now. We facilitate those regional discussions. We work to put the funding onto the transportation projects. We collect, analyze, develop all of these types of data that can hopefully be of use. They're definitely of use to us, but we try to make everything we do also be of use to our member agencies. That connection between what local agencies are doing and what we're trying to keep track of at the regional level. We work pretty hard on that. Those educational resources, and then every year we also recognize achievements. So sort of the best transportation projects or really good active leaders on transportation issues in the region. We do an annual recognition luncheon for them and give those awards out. That's coming up in December. So that's something that we're happy about too. And that tends to sort of be hopefully a reinforcing cycle, sort of a virtuous reinforcement for that. If you want to learn more, we do a longer version of this where we actually get down into the weeds on a lot of these different types of things. But we have those in January usually. We try to do them so that it's after election cycles where we have new members roll onto our board from all the different local agencies around the region. We provide a couple opportunities for that so that we can kind of hit different times and windows of where people can be available to participate in these. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. Hope it wasn't too long. I'm willing to go on for as long as anyone wants to.
Oh, it's a nighttime meeting.
I know that. I know. I really do appreciate that. But my contact information is at the back. And so if you have any questions or ever want to reach out to me, please feel free to reach out directly to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor, I do have a question. Craig, thanks for being here. Appreciate the work. It's nice to look at some of the future forecasting and, be able to envision, some of the challenges or opportunities that may be out there. I'm going to probably state some stuff incorrectly, so please feel free to correct me. But I think a couple months ago, Compass came out with a recommendation to address a lot of these concerns. One of the things and the most effective things to be looking towards is regional rail. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that recommendation. I believe that maybe you also slightly mentioned it today as far as an adoption goes. Is that separate from the recommendation? But just maybe a little bit of the work and the recommendations related to regional rail.
Sure. So if I could, the basic process that we followed there is what's called a planning and environmental linkage and study. And so what we actually did was we started with a whole bunch of different options. And we evaluated each of those against a set of needs that we identified based on, population growth, travel, people's expressed travel interest and patterns, opportunities, sort of what will be effective. We did, economic analysis, we did route analysis, things like that. We winnowed that list. I think we started with 12. We winnowed that down to a single recommendation. Our board approved that as what's called a preliminary locally preferred alternative. And that's a sort of a creative term that we got from the Federal Transit Administration, but it lays the groundwork for being able to adopt or seek funding. So that was the first step in the process, but the final step in the planning activity that we have underway right now will be the adoption of the actual plan and environmental linkage study, the full document with all the background materials and all of that. That'll happen. That document's basically done, and we're going to take it to our board in February for their final adoption.
And in the process that you've kind of gone through so far, have you done any modeling that kind of says this is what it looks like as far as addressing some of the congestion issues, or this is what it wouldn't like if we didn't explore these options? Is it that far along yet where you can test any sort of modeling to see what problems it would solve?
At this point, the results that we can provide are a bit more focused on overall directionality of trends that would be impacted by that, or improved or not addressed by that. And then we can talk a little bit about the relative benefit between the different options that we were looking at. And so, the three finalists were the rail line, the commuter rail line, a bus rapid transit line that would operate, these are all east-west routes and different alignments, but basically those were the options. Then one was a bus operating on dedicated dedicated lane on 84. And of those, the rail option was the one that would generate the most ridership, would have the most consistent performance, would have probably, and this was the one that was it's very difficult to try to project this stuff too far out, but it would have the better opportunities for land development along that corridor. Some of those types of benefits. And that's really what led us to that recommendation. It was the board, obviously, that made the recommendation. But the one thing I would note too is that has been the board's vision for a couple of decades now.
Yep.
And really what this plan let us do was move the next step towards being able to seek and develop funding to actually be able to make it happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Madam Mayor, sorry. If I can just make a quick comment, looking at the macro scale on the kind of a micro side, I really appreciate Compass's support. We had a project that came up from one of our neighborhood associations for Alpine and Latah doing a safety study. And with the city of Boise's help, particularly Bree, and putting in for that, we were able to move a project that wasn't even planned, that just kind of came up and naturally in the area to help create a safety plan going forward. So I appreciate Compass and just trying to provide an example of how we can look at this as new projects may come up in our districts.
If I could, that was one where we had a bit of a late in the fiscal year influx of additional funds that allowed us to shift some additional funds to do that and then be able to add that to the list of these project development program applications and be able to select that to get it funded this fall. So we were really happy to be able to do that one.
Madam Mayor, just another quick comment as well. Appreciate all your work and just want to pass that appreciation on from my neighbors. Even 2 weeks ago, I knocked into someone that was asking about the pathway from Federal Way down to Broadway, and just important partnership, the work that you're working on. Obviously, we talked about the Lake Hazel extension as well, and so looking forward to all that. But thank you for all you do.
Great. Thank you very much.
Well, it's great to have you here tonight. And I hadn't realized it's only been 9 months because you've done quite a bit of work in the time that you've been here. Really appreciate the partnership and your leadership of this organization, the approach that you're taking. And I'm grateful you took the time tonight to update the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Thank
you. Okay, we now have a request for reconsideration regarding the decision the council made on the appeal of CUP 2522 and CVA 2525. Hi, Josh. Josh is going to do, I think, a quick intro, and then the council will pick this up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. So on September 30th, 2025, City Council approved the conditional use permit and variance applications for a shelter home at 4306 West State Street. Subsequently, on October 21st, the council adopted the revised findings and conditions of approval for those applications. Following that adoption of revised findings, the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association submitted a request for reconsideration of the decision on November 6th. As detailed in your packet tonight, they have posited that the council's decision did not follow lawful procedure and violated constitutional and statutory provisions. Based on the decision of council made, the revised findings adopted by council, we would recommend that that's request for reconsideration not be granted, and I would stand for any questions.
Thanks, Josh. Council? No questions? All right.
Madam Mayor, a question on procedure.
Sure. Actually, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, council member.
Yeah, as I recall, the only way that this is reconsidered is if someone makes a motion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have any comments to make? All right.
I guess, Madam Mayor, I'm not planning on making a motion here. I read through the packet that was sent in. I read through the request. I didn't see anything in there that was cause for reconsidering. I stand by the revised findings. I believe that we got those correct. And so I didn't see anything here that would cause a need to make a motion. And so without making a motion, I would be denying.
Sure. This is, is anybody planning on making a motion? All right. There will be no motion. This is always one of those weird things. That's how our procedure works. And it's like awkward silence with no motion up here. So I'll just say, because for lack of a motion, the request for reconsideration is denied, and we will move to the next item, which is the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willits.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now move on to ordinances. It looks like we've got one on second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
40-37-25. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Boise City, Idaho, terminating the revenue allocation area for the River Myrtle Old Boise Urban Renewal Plan as amended, requiring distribution of any surplus determined to exist pursuant to Section 50-2909 Idaho Code, authorizing the city clerk or the Urban Renewal Agency of Boise City, Idaho, also known as Capital City Development Corporation, to file the ordinance together with the boundary map with the Office of the County Recorder, the County Assessor, and the Idaho State Tax Commission as provided in Section 63-215 Idaho Code, providing that a copy of this ordinance shall be given to each of the taxing entities affected by said revenue allocation area, approving a summary of the ordinance and providing an effective date.
Thank you. We're now going to move into subdivisions. The first subdivision wasn't published, so it needs to be deferred, and I'll need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we defer subdivision 24-00012 for a date certain of December 9th due to an error in the newspaper publishing notification.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And now we'll move to SUB 2529. The presenter is Doug Exton. Hi. Ben Semple is not in the room, so perhaps Ben's online. We don't expect any public testimony, so what I'll do is I'll hear from staff. We'll ask if there are any questions of council. If the applicant's in agreement with the conditions, we'll go ahead and move forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Before you tonight is a preliminary and final plat for the Vancouver
Oh,
subdivision
somebody
located
else.
at 3005 West Millat Street. The proposal will consist of 3 buildable lots which comply with the dimensional standards of the R2 zone. As summarized in your packet and on the public record, a 20-foot landscape buffer with street improvements are provided along Chaffone Street. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the Vancouver subdivision. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Great. Any questions for Doug? So, is Ben Semple on? He's not. I have somebody that signed up for this one. Fortune, maybe? Fortune Ballestero? Oh, are you here for this item, or did you mean to be here for the Lewis Street item?
One that got deferred.
Oh, for the one that got deferred? I'm so sorry that you spent time here and it's deferred. Sorry about that. We'll see you on the 9th. Okay. All right. The applicant is not here. Any further questions for staff? Want to confirm nobody's here to testify on this? All right. I'll close the hearing and take a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of SUB 25-00029, a preliminary and final plat for a residential subdivision located at 3005 West Millat Street, comprised of 3 buildable lots on 0.2 acres in an R2 residential compact zone.
Second.
We have a motion and second discussion.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just real quick. This is a pretty simple, straightforward development, a good infill project in an area where it makes sense. Had the developer been here, I probably would have asked just because I always do the size of the units because I'm always curious to see what we can be doing to be building more units that are smaller, that are more accessible for folks. But again, I think this is a good example of getting a little bit more homes in an area that makes sense in a way that also fits well in the neighborhood.
All right, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks. Now we'll move on to the public hearing. So we have 2 items, CAR 2513 and DRH 25158, that are tied to the same properties. And so I'll be holding one public hearing on them. And however, at the end, we will make 2 motions. But with that said, when folks come up, you can address both issues because we'll do one hearing for this. We've got Matt Dennis from our city and Dan Givens. Sorry, I need to take my glasses off so I can see faces. Dan Givens, the applicant. Kevin Fritz from the Neighborhood Association. Is Kevin online? All right. Is anybody from ENA here? And then I do have Carrie Ellen Elliott and Helen Stoll signed up. And so we'll hear from the city, then the applicant, and then we will hear from the public.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening. As you said, the items before you are a zoning map amendment and a major historic action to remove a design review overlay district from 1.05 acres in an R1C/HD-O/FP-O residential traditional with historic design overlay and flood protection overlay zone located at 1312, 1328, and 1334 East Lewis Street. To clarify, the intent of these applications is to remove the historic district overlay from the subject properties. The base zoning district of R1C residential traditional remains unchanged, meaning the currently allowed uses and residential densities are unaffected by this request. To summarize, two previous hearings have commenced for these items, which were the Historic Preservation and Planning and Zoning Commissions, both of which heard and recommended approval of their respective applications for this request. And just as a refresher, shown on your screen here is a list of findings for approval for the zoning map amendment, which were applied to this application. And then similarly for the major historic action, and we can come back to these slides if needed. In 1995, City Council approved a rezone of approximately 70 acres containing over 100 properties situated along Warm Springs Avenue to establish a historic design overlay to reflect this area as a historically significant corridor. This area is outlined in black on your screen. The project report from 1995 identified 3 defining characteristics of the area, which were being oriented towards Warm Springs Avenue, containing a historically contributing structure, and having access to geothermal lines. Shown here is an exhibit from that 1995 report, where the subject properties were still a part of its now northern neighbor's backyard. The subject properties are shaded in red, and its northern neighbor, which were once a part of these properties, is outlined in red. And I'll note how only 3 of these properties included within this black outline are adjacent to Lewis Street. And it's worth noting that all 3 of these properties are double fronted onto Warm Springs Avenue, which was the only reason that they were originally included in the historic district. In 2022, a minor land division was approved, which split off the 3 subject properties from the now northern neighbor's backyard. All 3 of these newly created properties are vacant. And this approval was also granted a sidewalk waiver request, which allowed the construction of a detached sidewalk to finalize these lots, but without the curb and gutter. And that was done so to preserve the trees within the right of way adjacent to that site. Shown on this side is the minor land division Mylar overlaid onto an aerial image with geothermal lines shown in yellow. Notice how the subject properties were once adjacent to the geothermal line when they were part of the northern neighbor's backyard, but are no longer adjacent to that geothermal line now that they're separated and oriented towards Lewis Street. So as detailed, the 1995 report identified 3 defining characteristics for the historic district. As stated within the project report and summarized by this table, since this minor land division was approved, these subject properties no longer are oriented towards Warm Springs Avenue, are vacant without contributing structures, and do not have access to geothermal lines. Thus, these properties no longer exhibit the defining characteristics of the overlay district, and therefore are not pertinent to the historic district. Late correspondence was received in advance of this hearing, wherein concerns were expressed regarding this list on your screen. As stated within the late correspondence memo, the historic designation has no impact or protection on trees located within the public right-of-way. Similarly, front entrance garages are allowed within this overlay when alley access is not available, as is the case here. And finally, as previously stated, these applications do not affect the base zoning designation of R1C, meaning the residential densities and allowed uses are unchanged by the request. As such, these are not considerations in findings for approval for either application and therefore have no bearing on council's decision tonight, which is whether or not the subject properties meet the criteria to be removed from the historic district. These considerations on the screen will be reviewed during subsequent development applications. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of both applications, and I will stand for any questions. I also have Richard Jarvis here, who's the senior historic planner who worked on the DR, the major historic action.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I might see if I can just put a little bit of a finer point on something. So I read through the transcripts from the planning and zoning meeting, and then also got some email correspondence from folks, leading into the meeting. Again, mostly the concerns about the trees. And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. What we're doing right now is really just looking at the zoning map amendment and the removal of the historic district overlay. And so that actually this wouldn't be the time and place to actually address those trees. That would come in a later process as far as development, subdivision, those types of things. And so that's not something that we would be in power of today. We're really only just looking at the map amendment and the overlay.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that's exactly correct. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think we should hear from historic.
Yes, when we looked at this, we looked at, as described in our project report, we looked at the characteristic of the sites and the siting of those parcels. Now, of course, when the district was created, that was an entire parcel that ran all the way down to Lewis Street. These parcels being cut off, they are divorced from the relationship to the historic property and historic parcel on Warm Springs Avenue, and therefore they met the criteria and the findings for removal from the historic district.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just maybe another question here or point. I've had some similar projects come like this before in the past when there's kind of a vacant lot and a new house is going to be constructed or new structure is going to be constructed in a historic area. And really, if there is new construction, we're not trying to build that new construction to look like the old historic house because we actually want it to, be different. So we're not trying to mirror something from historic in the past. And so this actually wouldn't change that, whatsoever, because even with the historic district overlay, anything new that was going to be built, we really wouldn't be designing it to look historic to begin with.
That is correct. New construction should be of its time, but compatible, using similar masses, materials, et cetera, but it shouldn't be a copy of a particular historic style.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll hear from Dan Givens.
Good evening. Dan Givens, 1220 East Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83712. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I am the applicant of this, and really my comments are short. We fully support and back staff's and planning team's recommendations at this point. Happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll hear from the Elliots. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Carrie Ellen Elliott, 1309 East Lewis Street. We've been following this for a long time, since 2022. I'll just briefly give you an outline of our concerns. Given the recommendations of previous commissions, we are confident you will approve the requested rezone, removing the historic overlay from the subject parcel. As a consequence, there will be no design review process. It's our understanding permits will be reviewed for compliance and issued administratively. As the forum of last resort, our written supplemental testimony details and requests the council approve the zoning change with 3 conditions. And I'm paraphrasing: that the provisions of the waiver granted on January 31st, 2024 hold through the permitting process. 2, that any additional street improvements such as driveway cuts are designed to preserve the established trees where they are. And 3, that garages are designed and oriented to maintain a clean streetscape. These conditions are supported by the language and spirit of the waiver in the interest of safety first and an enhanced streetscape. You have on the screen a photograph of our home on East Lewis Street, which is directly across from and facing the parcel. It is representative of several other homes on East Lewis that were not included in the applicant's gallery. And I just want to point out there are 2 historic homes on East Lewis Street. One is a classic older home right next door to the parcel. We've lived on East Lewis Street for 29 years. East Lewis is a no outlet street with one egress point at Walnut for 112 properties and all associated vehicle trips per day. ACHD estimates 28 additional vehicle trips per day will be generated at single family build out. This intensified activity is inevitable and unavoidable, and we will have to absorb it as it is right out our front door. Our concerns are real and legitimate. The conditions offered mitigate for these impacts and increase the safety and livability of our home and others living on East Lewis Street. Boise City recognized an opportunity and acted on it. I'm hoping the next slide will come up.
Oh,
Boise City recognized an opportunity and acted on it. In collaboration with the applicant, certain street improvements were waived in favor of a detached sidewalk required and provided by the applicant that preserved the trees running the parcel. These trees have been there for decades and are functional, effective, and essential to pedestrian and vehicular safety along East Lewis Street. And I want to tell you, it's a hit. And we don't want to lose it.
Carolyn, Dave, she said time a little bit ago.
Okay.
I'd love if you could wrap up.
I just want to tell you, this is,
Yeah.
I'll just wrap.
Sure.
It's, people are using it. Children are riding their bikes on it. People are walking their dogs on it, taking strolls. And it, in my estimation, it demonstrates that you can have smart development and neighborhood safety and livability and growth. You can collaborate on this and everybody can coexist. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for your time.
Does anybody
I
have
appreciate it.
questions for Miss Elliott? I do. I have a question because I've sat on your porch and looked at this property with you a couple years ago. Are those sidewalks that you're talking about? Were those there?
You can see in the, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it
on
right
the
here.
screen.
Yeah, I've got it in front of
And
me.
you can see the trees lining on the
The street.
side.
Mhm.
And then the sidewalk is interior. So it creates a detached sidewalk effect. And it's beautiful. I'm here to tell you it's beautiful. It's such an enhancement to our neighborhood. And we would hate to see anything, destroy that or remove that going forward. It's really something that needs to be celebrated by Boise City. It really is. They really took it, saw an opportunity and acted on it here. And I think it's something worth keeping.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. And Mr. Elliott, did you want to testify or no? Okay. Helen Stoll. Welcome.
Welcome. Madam Mayor, council members, I guess I'm Helen Stoll, 1365 East Lewis Street. I live also across the street from the proposal. And I'm requesting your consideration to condition any approval on the preservation of the historic mature trees lining the frontage. The majority of these streetscape trees are historic elms that were part of the Warm Springs Historical District's legacy, and some of the few survivors of the Dutch elm disease outbreak. It would be very unfortunate if removing the historic district and design overlay designation resulted in removing some protections to these trees during future development. The historic trees are just as much a part of the historic district as the unique architecture. The Warm Springs Historic District description references, quote, a wide roadway with broad tree-lined sidewalks, unquote. The Warm Springs Historic District guidelines currently provide some protection, I feel, specifying it is not generally appropriate to, quote, remove mature trees, unquote. and recognizing the importance of, quote, maintaining the traditional character of the streetscape when installing new sidewalks or driveways. We would lose this protection. Mature trees and their root systems are also addressed under the historic landscapes portions of the guidelines. These features are to be maintained to the greatest extent feasible. It should be noted that the value of mature trees and their root systems becomes even greater as our climate changes. So I guess our neighborhood, Warm Springs Woods, it's called, is defined by the trees. And these scrappy elm trees provide us with environmental, pedestrian safety, and traffic slowing benefits. They also provide habitat for our neighborhood's non-human residents, like the great horned owls that sit there in the evening, calling to each other, the athletic, clown-like squirrels, the flocks of migrating robins and cedar waxwings, and the turkeys that sometimes rest underneath them. The trees are simply a part of our neighborhood and quality of life. And so we request that any action to remove these parcels be conditioned on the continued preservation of these mature streetscape trees. Conditioning the approval on preserving the historic trees will ensure the applicant receives their desired design flexibility while still protecting the historic trees and the values they provide to our established neighborhood and the city. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a couple more of you back there. I'm not sure. Anybody else want to testify? All right. Is anybody online to testify? Oh, wait. Oh, I didn't see you there. Sorry about that. And after you share your testimony, will you put your name on, name and address down there just so we have it for the record?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Welcome.
My name is Martha Del Toso, and I reside at 1225 Warm Springs Avenue. My parcel is adjacent to this parcel, and I fully support the removal from the historical district. I have no issue with it as an adjacent neighbor. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Will you just be sure, Martha, to list there? Anyone else? Online? All right. Now I'll see if council has questions for staff.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I've got some questions for staff. It may end up being an additional question for the developer, but maybe not. So I know this isn't what we're hearing tonight, you know, the protection of these trees. They're in the public right of way. So we have control, City of Boise, of this public right of way, correct in that understanding?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, thank you for the question. So Title VII is a tree ordinance, and it states that if removal for trees within the public right of way, if removal is not warranted, then it's not tolerated. So it would be a code compliance case if somebody were to remove those trees without receiving approval. And so through community forestry, and if they were to go through that approval, the trees will be posted if they need to be removed, and that's standard throughout the city through Title VII.
But it would really be our decision, or it would be our arborist decision if we needed to remove these trees because they're on our property.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that's correct, yes.
And so potentially there's maybe a circumstance where if there's a driveway that's coming in because of the alignment with the developer may request that. But in the end, it would really be the city's decision on whether or not we would approve the driveway going through the tree versus going through somewhere else in the future process, not tonight.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that is an accurate representation of how that process would go, yes.
Okay. And so on this particular street, we've got a detached sidewalk. My guess is that if there was a new development that was happening on here, we wouldn't actually require a detached sidewalk. There's probably not enough traffic there. So we would typically in a development, we would require an on-street sidewalk.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, you know, if a development application came through where detached sidewalk was required, since the detached sidewalk is existing, that condition would have already been met at
Sure.
the existing condition. So
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying, so if this is the bare lot, no sidewalk is there whatsoever, and a developer was coming in, we would be requiring them to put a sidewalk. It would probably be on the street with this level of traffic.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, the standard street improvement is detached sidewalk. So regardless of the
On the
activity
street.
of the street, we start with
Yep.
detached sidewalk.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to get at is with a nice looking sidewalk like that and trees that are there, I don't see a circumstance of why the city would make them move that sidewalk or tear down the trees. It looks like it's in good shape. And so other than potentially putting in a driveway, I'm just trying to foresee like what sort of circumstance we as a city would decide that we're going to make the developer pay for something else and get rid of trees and move the sidewalk. Is there anything that would trigger an increased sidewalk width, or something that we would be telling the developer to do that would put these trees in danger?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, the width of the sidewalk is determined by the classification of the street. So a local street only needs a 5-foot wide sidewalk. So as it exists now, it meets that criteria. If it came in through a development application and was not improved at all, then a standard 8-foot landscape buffer with a 5-foot wide sidewalk would be required.
So we don't anticipate in the further stages of this process, which I believe at this point it would probably be at a staff level if it fit within the zoning that they're asking for. We don't anticipate making any recommendations for changes to that nice looking sidewalk.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I agree. I think that a new driveway would be the only potential, interference with the existing trees and the root system there. But as far as additional improvements that would be required from the city, that would require them to tear them up, not so much.
Sure, thank you. And then unless there's any questions, just question for the developer.
Yeah, is your intent in this signaling that you don't want the city to inadvertently require a new sidewalk that's wider that takes out the trees?
That's correct.
Yes. So will we note that, please, for this application that, as we hear, this sidewalk passes muster, but we don't want our process to trip up the desire to protect this sidewalk.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just quick question for the developer. So I realize this isn't what we're hearing tonight. This is a different phase of the plan. Do you anticipate there being any sort of conflicts with the driveway and preserving the trees that are along this stretch?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I don't see, well, I will represent this. The property has sold during this 2.5-year sojourn for 3 development lots. In fact, the new owner is planning on doing a lot consolidation. He's going to actually remove 1 lot. I haven't seen that plan. I don't have that in writing. I'm just verbally conveying that message. So they can have a little more room to build a really wonderful home, and then they will be doing one other spec home. They have represented to me in the past they have no intention of removing any of the trees. The way the improvements were made and that sidewalk cost us about $140,000. All of the utilities are under that sidewalk. They're all stubbed. It's all ready to go, and it all met with city and CHD requirement. But again, the new owner has no intention of removing the trees, whether or not a driveway may conflict with the placement of one of the trees, and they may need to request removal of the trees. I suppose that's possible. I have no knowledge of that at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything further for staff? Dan, you've got rebuttal / wrap up if you'd like to say something more.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Again, I just want to revisit that the trees and the concerns about density and traffic, are not germane to this application, both applications at all. Nonetheless, we've done the best we can to address concerns all the way from the neighborhood meeting to tonight. And again, I live in the neighborhood up on East Bannock Street. I understand the importance of trees. I've been in the Northeast End for my entire 63-year life. And I understand how many of our neighbors feel. But this is not, an apartment complex going in. We're really looking at 3 lots that have been platted and are parceled and approved, and likely only going to be 2. So the odds of any of those trees coming down are really pretty slim. It would have to be a really huge driveway. And even in doing so, then you run into issues with the root structures and whatnot. So, I can't speak to whether a tree or a couple of trees may go, but there's no plans at this time to touch them. So thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'll close the hearing. Yeah, is your mic on? I can't tell.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of CAR 25-00013, a request for a certificate of appropriateness, major and zoning map amendment to remove design review overlay district from the 1.5 acres in traditional with historic design overlay and flood protection overlay zone located at 1312, 1328, and 1334 East Lewis Street.
Second.
We have a motion, second discussion.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just some comments here since I've been kind of the ones putting more comments out there. So I completely agree with the developer, completely agree with the staff. When this comes in front of us, we have to make our decisions based off of what the application is. And so what you're asking for as far as conditions goes with those trees, I am in complete agreement with what your desire is, but also those are also conditions that aren't actually directed at what is being put in front of us today. The questions that I'm asking, from staff and from the developer are sort of in realization that, yes, that's not what we're making a decision on today. And also it would be absolutely insane for us to tear out a good looking existing sidewalk that meets the specs that it's supposed to, and to change anything where it would be taking out an entire row of trees. And there should be no part of our process that would make us go in that sort of direction. I do understand that in a development, there's maybe a situation where a driveway gets put in that maybe affects the root structure. And, that's something that maybe does get anticipated. But my expectation for staff, not just on this application, but any application, is that if we have existing infrastructure in place, that we leave it in place and we don't create additional cost for the developer, for anybody else in the process, and that we don't remove trees in any sort of circumstance when we don't have to. And so, again, I realize that that's not what we're making a decision on tonight. We're making a decision on the overlay and a planning map amendment. And I just always want to make sure that I'm making it as clear as possible, that keeping these types of things fits completely within our comprehensive plan and should be a guiding force in helping these decisions go forward. And if it takes a little bit of flexibility, in some circumstances, a slightly narrower sidewalk in one spot, a dimension where it's 6 inches narrower of a driveway to keep a tree, those should always be flexibility that I believe that we should be pursuing. So that's why I'm supportive of the motion. I do hear those concerns from the neighbors. I do think that those will be addressed in a later portion of the process. And I don't see any reason why there would be any sort of major changes to the sidewalk or to a whole row of existing trees in the ongoing steps of this development.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in. I want to thank the Elliots and Ms. Stoll for leaning into this project for all these years now, and for turning out tonight. I am also grateful to Councilmember Halliburton for the clarifying questions. Mature trees and detached sidewalks are all within the city's values, in the kind, in preservation towards the development we'd like to see as we see growth and continued development. So I trust the staff's future decisions to respect those existing pieces of infrastructure and those mature trees, and certainly echo the support that Councilmember Halliburton has, that that I'm also in support of preserving those things as best we can. And also I hope that the property owners and that the developer there is hearing these interests of ours and will continue to pursue the development with those comments in mind.
All right. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Madam Mayor, we broke this into two motions, so I'll make a second motion, and this is approval of DRH 25-0018. A request for a certificate of appropriateness major and zoning map amendment to remove a design review overlay district from the 1.05 acres in a residential traditional with historic design overlay and flood protection overlay. The zone located at 1312, 1328, and 1334 East Lewis Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll have the comments from the last motion stand if that's works for everybody. Great. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Before I take a motion for to adjourn, I just want to highlight Josh and team, the remarks from Councilmember Halliburton about this property in particular, but citywide in general, the interest we have in flexibility around movement of sidewalks, et cetera, to protect mature trees so that we're not backtracking on one goal, making it harder to reach while seeking to achieve another one. There's a way to do both at once. And I'd say that this property in particular with this setup as it is demonstrates that, and we want to protect that as it is moving forward in the applications that come. I hope that the developer and the applicant expresses that intent by council in making the motions tonight and from a policy perspective with the folks that will be designing the homes. Thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.